レーシオ。そうだな、マレーシア。クワンタンがいい。なんでもない海辺に家を建てよう。買うだけ買って手をつけてない本が山ほどある。1ページずつ今までの時間を取り戻すようにめくるんだ。違う、私は今伏黒君を助けにマキさん、ナオビトさん、2人はどうなんだ。疲れたな。そう、疲れたんだ。もう十分やったぞ。
Kento Nanami is one of the most beloved characters of Jujutsu Kaisen, and understandably so. He's the first who mentor Yuji got. He's really cool, strong, handsome, respectful, and quite relatable to a lot of fans. But his impact to the story is in my opinion far bigger than people will acknowledge him for. Nanami plays a big role in the story of Jujutsu Kaisen and also helped Gigguk shape the world of Jujutsu Kaisen in a more interesting way. That is why I wanted to give a deeper analysis of how and why Kento Nanami matters. The first time we see Nanami is when he and Yuji were investigating on the cinema case in Junpei's arc. Here we get introduced to the first and, in my opinion, biggest role that Nanami takes, that of being a teacher. Not only does Nanami show Yuji the hopes of being a Jujutsu sorcerer, but he also introduces and explains a lot of important concepts. The first notable things that Nanami taught us are the many applications of binding vows. The only time we saw one was a binding vow between Sukuna and Yuji. Nanami then further explained how a binding vow could also work for yourself. The first example was the revealing of how your curse technique works. This being quite a big risk also gave a big reward, that being a boost in your curse technique's overall power. Another kind of application were the handicaps you can give yourself to get a sort of reward out of it. Taking Nanami as an example again, he only ever fights at 80% of his max power while he is on the clock. But when he goes into over hours, he gains a massive boost where he can fight at 130% of his power. Just in comparison, being in the zone after hitting a black flash has the same boost as overwork, making it quite impressive all in all. While not directly involved in the fight against Hanami, Nanami was still used to help explain the concept of the black flash. And this made a lot of sense, as was the person who had the record for most consecutive black flashes, that being 4. He gives extra context to what happens to a sorcerer after hitting the black flash, what differentiates them from other sorcerers and makes them go into the quote-unquote zone. He also is the first person to bring up the weaknesses of a domain's art side, and so on. Nanami with also actions and knowledge was the perfect representation of what a grade 1 sorcerer should be. Until now, I have gone over the more obvious and direct things that Nanami teaches us about the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. But I also wanted to go over the indirect things that Nanami's character was able to highlight. Now, I will mostly be talking about the ideology and mentality of Nanami, and how his worldview stands in a world as wicked as the one of Jujutsu Kaisen. First off, it is important to understand that Nanami hates the current Jujutsu society. He himself states that the only reason that he came back to working as a sorcerer was that he chose the work that felt less shitty to him. Even though it is quite easy to understand that it wasn't solely this reasoning that brought him back to working as a sorcerer. We also must acknowledge that trauma was the reason that he left the Jujutsu world in the first place. After Haibara's death, Nanami began to question if he even wanted to live in an environment where he should be ready to sacrifice his life, or worse, his colleague's life, due to the harsh nature of his line of work. That is why he ran away from the Jujutsu world in the first place. He just didn't have it in him to have his colleagues die or have his colleagues see him die. Before rejoining the Jujutsu world, Nanami had been working in a normal company. It is then that we can deduce the most important trait of Nanami's mentality. While his boss only thinks about the profit towards the company, Nanami could only think about being honest and giving the best product to his clients, a showcase of his kindness and sense of responsibility. But he still had one problem. and that is his lack of meaningful goals. He saw himself as a person who didn't really have a reason to live or anything worth doing. The only thing that had been on his mind was money, money, and money alone. And here comes Nanami's quote-unquote savior. This girl whose name we don't even know. The matter of fact is that this character is by no means special or has done anything out of the ordinary. The only thing going on was her being harassed by one cursed spirit. When Nanami saw her and the spirit, he did his best to just let them be and not get involved with them. The problem is that Nanami himself isn't someone that can ignore the suffering or abusing of the weak and innocent. He's just a person who is far too responsible for that. Nanami tried to ignore it by keeping on working and doing his best to earn the biggest amount of money he could, but that didn't bring anything to his life. The only thing that happened was him getting more tired and asking himself more and more questions. That was until the day he began to talk to the girl again. Something interesting that Nanami brought up is the fact that no one would mind him leaving, but they for sure would mind if their favorite bakery left. I took it as Nanami showing that he does want to have people that care for him. His life revolves around taking money from the rich and to make them even more rich. It is quite simple to understand that he totally dislikes this lifestyle. When talking about how his work in the Jujutsu world pays better, the girl just doesn't understand what he wants to say and thought he was bragging, which in our codes would be a normal reaction. On a whim, Nanami then decided to kill the cursed spirit that had been harassing the girl, and her response was what saved Nanami. A simple thank you got Nanami back on his tracks to being a Jujutsu sorcerer. I honestly think that the girl represents the ordinary people who suffer from the curses running amok in Japan. Nanami, by killing that spirit, finally left his trauma behind and got back to doing what he feels is his obligation, saving and protecting the people. I've gone through lengths to explain the altruistic value of Nanami because understanding this will show how his, and by extension, Yuji's ideology stands in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. The world of Jujutsu Kaisen is filled with multiple ideologies and stances of how a person should live in it. Let's take a look at Mei, another Grade 1 sorcerer. Mei's whole life revolves around money. For her, nothing is more worth than money, and she judges people by their ability to make money for her. That's why she will do things that are quite questionable if she knows that it will end up making her more rich. With all that said, Mei is a formidable sorcerer who overcame most of her weaknesses just to be stronger and generate even more money. Her curse technique, Black Bird manipulation, is definitely not one suited for battle, and she understood that long ago. And that is the reason that Mei trained her body and martial arts to her limits, just so she could fight and earn her money more efficiently. This still was not enough power for her, and that is when she created her strongest attack. By making a binding vow with one of the birds, she increases the curse energy to extremely high levels and lets the bird kamikaze, creating an impact so potent that it can kill a special grade curse spirit in one go. This attack is really impressive if you know that the only people even capable of surviving this strike are people like Gojo, Sukuna, and Pseudo Geto. Another person we'd like to talk about is Satoru Gojo himself. What Gojo wants to do is foster strong allies whom he can stand along as equals with in his life. He despises the current higher-ups of the Jujutsu society, and it is created a new society that he needs these smart and strong individuals. Or at least, that is the surface level of all his reasoning. Just like Geto and Mei suggested, Gojo could easily kill every human in Japan, so killing the Jujutsu higher-ups should be an easy task to him. The reality is that Gojo just wanted to get rid of his loneliness. Since Gojo became the strongest and Geto left Jujutsu High, Gojo could not live the same way as before. With his best friend gone and the burden of being the strongest on his shoulders, Gojo felt a rift between him and other people, creating this enormous feeling of loneliness. The final character I'll bring up is the King of Curses, Ryomen Sukuna. Sukuna is quite simple compared to every other character in Jujutsu Kaisen. His way of life is to do whatever the hell he wants. That's it. Sukuna's actions have always been guided by this big sense of self-fulfillment. He played around with Megumi and Jogo as he was interested in their abilities, and genuinely wanted to have fun while fighting. He killed thousands of human Shibuya just to gauge the strength of Mahoraga, and once again have fun with him. He goes where he pleases, eats what he wants, sleeps when he wants, all in all just him living his life to the fullest. Sukuna is just a person with no restrictions who doesn't give a damn about the concept of good or evil. Hell, he saved Megumi, what we as a viewer could say is a good thing, even though he brought the death of thousands of innocent people. Yeah. When I compare all these outstanding sorcerers, there is always one underlying theme that they all got in common, and that is their sense of selfishness. Something that we see on multiple occasions is how people that are driven by their selfishness are the ones that benefit the most in the Jujutsu world. Mei is by far a worse person than Nanami, but she still is left unharmed and more rich after the Shibuya arc, while Nanami, well, died in that arc. Gojo awakened after his loss to Toji, not because he hurt his friends or killed Riko, but because of his selfish desire of wanting to be stronger and beat Toji. And finally, we have Sukuna, who is the prime example of how far being selfish and not caring about any rules or persons can bring you in a world like Jujutsu Kaisen's. When Sukuna and Jogo have their talk in the afterlife, he recognizes that Jogo was indeed a strong individual, but him latching onto feelings of camaraderie and wanting to become the new humans was the reason he could not evolve any further. Him not being more selfish and true to his instincts as a curse was the reason he could never reach the level of Satoru Gojo. We even got a direct example of what not really caring about other comrades could do with Mahito. The only thing on Mahito's mind in the arc was growing stronger and follow his instincts as a cursed spirit. He enjoyed tormenting Yuji and other human beings and continued following his selfish desires. He didn't really care about his comrades or anything like that and therefore got a gigantic payoff. And he finally understood the essence of his soul after hitting the two black flashes, Mahito transformed into his true form. With this newfound strength, he was on the way to become the next Sukuna, and if there is one thing that we can say for sure, it is that Sukuna's name is not one to be thrown around lightly in the Jujutsu world. Nanami, on the other hand, ended up getting a cruel fate. After all his efforts, he ended up dying while trying to help his other comrades. That's where one of the biggest lessons about Nanami's existence in the JJK world lies. It is that genuinely good and altruistic people cannot last long in that world. Nobara, Haibara and Nanami are all characters with genuine good intentions and are part of the kindest characters in the series, but it still did not save them from their demise. At the time, it created a new question to answer. How would Yuji and his ideology fare in this world? The only drive Yuji had throughout the series is how he should help and save the most amount of people, or at least give these people a good death. This ideology, just like Nanami's, stands opposite of how the world of Jujutsu Kaisen works, where the most selfish people gain the most out of the world. But this was not the last lesson where Nanami's character will take part in. You see, when Nanami was about to die, he had a last internal dialogue with Haibara. When Haibara pointed Yuji out, Nanami was against the idea of relaying his burdens to him, but finally saw that it was what he should do. He did it because he knew that Yuji was the right person to entrust the future to. This moment got solidified further when Todo came in and saved the day. That is how Yuji got the essence of being a true Jujutsu sorcerer. Todo explained that it is their duty as the surviving sorcerers to carry onto the burdens that their fallen comrades left behind. Trying to give a meaning to their deaths could stain them even further, and what they should do as the survivors is to keep on moving. As long as they keep on living, their allies have not been defeated. And that is even more true for Nanami, whose only goal was to protect his allies and other innocent people. Nanami was a great sorcerer, the kindest of them even. Everything he did was for the better good. He was the most responsible person in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen and went out while guiding the new generation. His death and Todo's guidance were able to solidify Ryuji's philosophy in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, and it's that philosophy that new resolve that will end up reshaping that world. Thank you all for watching the video. Leave a comment below if you want to further discuss some points I made or who wants me to analyze other characters, games, or whatever crosses your mind. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, it is greatly appreciated. This was Tigana, until next time.